In the headlines, bandits led by Bello Turji attack Sokoto communities, residents flee. United States boosts Nigeria's military capabilities amid intensified anti-banditry operations. NDLEA seizes 2.5 billion naira illicit substance in Jigawa, multiple suspects arrested. Away from Nigeria, Museveni eyes 7th term in Uganda, longest-serving leader seeks to extend reign. Hello, good evening, and welcome to News Update on Trust TV. I am Dorcas Yakubuzala. Notorious bandits leader Bello Turji has launched fresh attacks on several communities in eastern Sokoto state, beginning with a raid on Tidibale village in Isa local government area on Monday night. The gunmen stormed the village in large numbers, forcing residents to flee their homes to neighboring communities for safety. A community-based security intelligence platform confirmed the attack, warning that it is part of a broader plan by Turji to take control of strategic areas in the eastern axis of Sokoto state. Security sources also said Bargaja village in the same local government area was attacked days earlier, suggesting a systemic campaign to expand the group's influence. Despite repeated assurances by authorities, communities in the area continue to suffer attacks, abductions, and displacements linked to armed groups. So far, there has been no official response from the Sokoto state government or security agencies on the latest violence. Now, at least 4 people have been killed and several others are missing following a night attack on Otobi Akpa community in Otupo local government area of Benue state. The attackers reportedly struck around 1 a.m. on Tuesday, firing sporadically and forcing residents to flee into nearby bushes. 4 young men were said to have been shot dead, while a pastor's wife, Menu Ojiji, reportedly died from shock after the incident. A resident, James Ode, said the gunmen arrived in large numbers and began shooting around the community's major transformer area. He added that many residents were still hiding in the bush hours after the attack. A youth leader, Egaji Ejimbi, described the attack as deliberate and called for urgent intervention by security agencies. The bodies of the victims have been deposited at the Federal University of Health Sciences Teaching Hospital in Otupo. The Kebbi State government has reopened Government Girls Comprehensive Secondary School, Maga, following the successful rescue of 24 schoolgirls abducted last November. The Commissioner for Basic and Secondary Education, Halima Bande, announced the resumption after a security meeting with principals and school heads in Benue, Kebbi on Tuesday. Bande said confidence among parents and students has been restored through counseling and the full deployment of security personnel, paving the way for safe academic activities. She added that the government is committed to implementing all necessary measures to guarantee the safety of students and staff. According to the Commissioner, Governor Nasser Idris has directed security awareness programs for school principals and staff to prevent future incidents. Similar sessions had previously been held in Zuru, Yauri, Jega, Bunza, and Argungu, with a final session conducted in Benue, Kebbi. Bande emphasized that principals, vice principals, staff, and students all have crucial roles in maintaining school security, noting that the forums aim to ensure a safe and conducive learning environment through heightened awareness. The United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, has announced the delivery of military supplies to its Nigerian partners in Abuja. A disclosure was made in a post on X on Tuesday, though no details were given on the type of quantity of equipment type or quantity of equipment delivered. Photographs attached to the post showed sealed military consignments being offloaded from a military aircraft. A development comes amid intensified Nigerian military operations against terrorist groups across several parts of the country. It also follows recent American missile strikes on suspected terrorist targets in parts of Sokoto state. Nigerian authorities have confirmed that the strikes were carried out with their cooperation, including the provision of intelligence to United States forces. Nigeria and the United States have maintained a long-standing security partnership focused on counter-terrorism, intelligence sharing, military training, and logistical support. This cooperation has been driven largely by Nigeria's fight against Boko Haram, the Islamic State of West African Province, ISWAP, and other armed groups operating in ungoverned areas. As part of this partnership, the United States has provided Nigeria with military training, equipment, and logistics, including a 29 Super Tucano aircraft, which have been used in air operations against insurgents targets. Now, Lagos State residents have welcomed the Federal Ministry of Education's announcement on reusable textbooks for primary and secondary schools. Parents say the move could reduce education costs significantly, but they urge strict compliance, particularly in private schools. The report.
To ease financial pressure on parents, the federal government has introduced a policy framework aimed at lowering education costs while improving learning outcomes nationwide. Jointly announced by the Minister of Education, Dr. Turji, and the Minister of State for Education, Professor Suwaiba Ahmed, the policy addresses concerns over rising school expenses, frequent textbook changes, and declining learning outcomes. At the heart of the initiative is the adoption of high-quality reusable textbooks designed to last 4 to 6 years. Schools will no longer bundle disposable workbooks with textbooks. This allows siblings to share materials, reducing recurring costs while promoting environmental sustainability.
That is good. We thank the government because textbook nowadays is very cost. We thank the government for doing that. But me, I'm talking about verbal and quantitative. You know, they used to give them assignment on it, but they can't use. Is it maths and English that they can use together, or I don't know. That's what I want to ask. Book nowadays is very expensive. Like my daughter now, basic 3, she paid like 31,000 plus for textbook, all the old textbook.
Aside from that school fees that the government too, they should find solution to school fees. They should receive the school fees. The other private or other public, the government should regulate the school fees. You understand? Then the textbook also, the government too, the school owners, all the proprietors, they should do everything to help the parents to reduce the price of the textbook.
In public school, because private school also, they have to be in one union, mostly in private school. Because you get some private school, this one is paying higher than, another one is paying lesser than. But in government school, I think the idea of using the same textbook is good, because if you get to both in private school, using the same textbook, that the siblings can also use it. But uniform, I'm against uniform, because the uniform, except if that uniform is well kept.
A good one, and I think we are progressing in this country. But the truth is that I don't think that policy will be effective unless the government will set bodies out to check those private schools, especially the private schools, to check them, they will need to go inside the schools themselves. For example, now I'm talking from experience. some parents don't have money to buy textbook.
The ministers emphasized that future textbook updates will follow structured revision cycles to ensure meaningful content improvements. Only a limited number of textbooks per subject and grade level will be approved, aligning with international standards and improving teaching consistency.
Nigeria and Turkey have intensified discussions to ease visa processes and enhance business mobility, signaling renewed commitment to strengthening bilateral trade and investment. A development follows a high-level meeting between Nigeria's Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, and the Turkish ambassador to Nigeria, Mehmet Poroy. Both parties explored measures to remove barriers to legitimate travel and commercial engagement. Tunji-Ojo highlighted the country's long-standing historical and cultural ties, reaffirming Nigeria's commitment to efficient, transparent, and mutually beneficial international cooperation. Ambassador Poroy noted recent improvements in visa facilitation for Nigerian business people traveling to Turkey, with visas now processed locally in 3 to 4 working days. He also raised concerns about challenges for Turkish investors seeking visas to Nigeria, urging inclusion of Turkey in Nigeria's e-visa system to reduce travel and logistical burdens. The meeting further clarified that all Nigerian marriage certificates are constitutionally valid and should not face extra verification abroad. Both sides agreed to maintain ongoing engagement to improve mobility, strengthen diplomatic ties, and unlock new economic opportunities for businesses and citizens in both countries. The federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to building a capable, professional, and resilient armed forces to protect Nigeria's sovereignty and support national development. The Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, made this known at the opening of the National Symposium and Lecture Series organized to mark the 2026 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day in Abuja. General Musa said the current administration is prioritizing troop welfare, improved training, doctrinal reforms, and the expansion of indigenous defense production to strengthen long-term security capacity. He noted that ongoing policy and legislative reforms are revitalizing local defense industries, creating jobs and reducing reliance on foreign suppliers while encouraging private sector participation. A defense minister also disclosed that enhanced training of special forces and stronger collaboration with regional and international partners has improved intelligence sharing and operational effectiveness against transnational threats. Also speaking, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Defense, Richard Filangwa, says Nigeria's true strength lies not just in weapons, but in unity, leadership, and shared national values. He urged participants to make practical recommendations that will further strengthen Nigeria's defense system and national cohesion. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has raised alarm over the increasing rate of drug abuse among young people in Nigeria. A deputy commander of the NDLEA in Osun State, Oluwatoyin Adegoke, expressed a concern while delivering a lecture at a 2-day orientation program for newly admitted students of the Federal University of Health Sciences, Ila Orangun. The lecture themed Healthy Living on Campus, Avoiding Drug Abuse and its Long-Term Consequences, highlighted the dangers of substance abuse among youths. Adegoke said many young people involved in drug abuse have become a burden to their families and society, noting that drug use is a major driver of criminal activities. She explained that many crimes are committed under the influence of drugs and warned students to stay away from substance abuse. Earlier, the Vice-Chancellor of the university, Professor Akim Lasisi, disclosed that 1,200 new students were admitted into the institution for the current academic session. This is News Update on Trust TV, coming up after the break. NDLEA seizes 2.5 billion naira illicit substance in Jigawa. Multiple suspects arrested. This and many more will read. Welcome back from the break. In case you're just joining, this is News Update on Trust TV. Let's take a look at our top stories again. We told you that bandits led by Bello Turji attack Sokoto communities, residents flee. And United States boost Nigeria's military capabilities amid intensified anti-banditry operations. Now moving on to more stories, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA) Jigawa State Command has recorded major breakthroughs in the fight against drug abuse and trafficking. The command says it intercepted illicit drugs worth more than 2.5 billion naira and arrested over 538,000 suspects during the year under review. Trust TV correspondent Ali Rabiu Ali completes the report.
The fight against drug abuse and trafficking in Jigawa State appears to be yielding results as the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency unveils a massive haul of seized illicit substances. The exhibition held in Duse showcases various drugs intercepted across state as part of the NDLEA's 2025 operational review.
We are witnessing the successes, the records of efforts put in place by NDLEA Jigawa State Command in their 2025, which culminated in the arrest of suspects and the seizure of the drug exhibit you are seeing behind us here.
According to the command, over 538,000 suspects were arrested, while illicit drugs with an estimated threat of value 2.5 billion naira were intercepted. The seized substances, weighing more than 947,000 kilograms, include cannabis, tramadol, diazepam, pregabalin tablets, pentazocine injections, rubber solution, and embalming chemicals such as formalin.
These drugs are dangerous substances. We have a whole lot of drugs here. It's an assorted figure. We have cannabis sativa, which is popularly called wiwi. We have tramadol tablets, 225, 200, 125. We also have pregabalin. We have diazepam tablets. We have so many of them.
On prosecution, the NDLEA says 136 suspects have been convicted, while 115 cases are currently pending before court across the state. Beyond enforcement, the agency has also focused on rehabilitation, with over 500 drug users undergoing counseling and treatment. Preventive efforts have also been intensified, reaching nearly 400,000 residents through sensitization programs in schools, communities, and media platforms. The NDLEA has commended the Jigawa State government, traditional rulers, the judiciary, security agencies, and the media for their support as it pledged to intensify the fight against drug abuse and traffic in the state. From Jigawa, Ali Rabiu Ali, Trust TV News.
Our Federal High Court in Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State, has sacked Wole Oluyede as the gubernatorial candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and ordered a rerun of the party's primary election. In his ruling, Justice Babs Kwewumi upheld concerns raised by Prince Funsho Ayeni, who challenged the process, citing manipulation of the approved delegate list on the day of the election. The court found that the action undermined transparency, internal democracy, and fairness. A judgment further held that the gross abuse of process, disregard for electoral guidelines, and violation of PDP's fundamental principles were inconsistent with both party rules and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Reacting to the ruling, PDP's Southwest Zonal Publicity Secretary, Sonia Atofarati, said the party intends to appeal the judgment, expressing confidence in its legal team. He described the court challenge as a conspiracy against the party and its flag bearer, asserting that the primary election was free and fair, as confirmed by independent National Electoral Commission officials who monitored the exercise. Now, parents of protesters in Ekpoma, Edo State, took to the streets demanding the release of their children who were arrested during a demonstration against kidnapping and insecurity in the area. The protest, which began peacefully, later turned violent, resulting in the arrest of over 50 individuals, including students of Ambrose Ali University. The arrested protesters have been remanded in the Ubieja Correctional Center, with their case adjourned to February 26, 2026. The Edo State government condemned the violence, assuring residents that adequate security measures are being implemented to restore peace. Meanwhile, the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, has called for the immediate and unconditional release of the students, emphasizing that peaceful protest is a constitutional right. Now, in business, Nigeria's liquefied natural gas exports to China are expected to decline this year as China sharply boosts its own domestic gas production. China, one of the world's biggest LNG importers, has traditionally been a major market for Nigerian gas. But new data shows the Asian giant is now producing more of its own natural gas, reducing its reliance on imports. Less than a decade ago, China struggled to develop its shale gas reserves. However, its state-owned energy companies are now recording major breakthroughs. Energy analytics firm Kepler reports that China produced over 22 billion cubic meters of gas in November alone, a significant increase driven by faster than expected shale gas output. China's total gas production is projected to rise further this year, a development that could court demand for imported LNG, including supplies from Nigeria. The shift is expected to affect Nigeria's gas export earnings and force a review of long-term LNG demand forecasts. Now, away from Nigeria, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, 81, is seeking a seventh term in office, extending a rule that began in 1986 and cementing his status as one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. Museveni came to power after leading a rebel movement that ousted a military regime, pledging democratic renewal. Nearly 4 decades later, critics accuse his government of corruption, democratic backsliding, and power consolidation, allegations authorities deny. He has won all 6 previous elections, though opposition parties have consistently rejected the outcomes, citing irregularities. Security forces have often clamped down on protests following disputed polls. Museveni's government has earned international praise for its response to the HIV and AIDS crisis, defeat of the Lord's Resistance Army, regional peacekeeping efforts, and hosting large numbers of refugees. However, economic gains have not translated into broad prosperity, with youth unemployment and education gaps persisting. In 2005, Parliament removed presidential term limits, a move critics say enabled Museveni's prolonged stay in power. His main challenger is opposition leader and pop star Bobi Wine, 43. While Museveni is widely expected to win, analysts say concerns are growing over succession, especially amid speculation surrounding his son, the army chief. Analysts note that public sentiment rather than the final result may be the key outcome of the vote. The United Nations has called for a swift and independent investigation into the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Rini Nicole Good by a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. UN human rights officials expressed deep concern over the use of lethal force and urged authorities to take steps to de-escalate tensions and avoid further violence amid nationwide protests. The incident, which occurred last week, has ignited widespread public anger, over federal immigration enforcement tactics. Good was shot while in her car after a confrontation with the ICE agent, with federal officials claiming the officer acted in self-defense, a claim strongly disputed by local leaders and witnesses who said footage shows her vehicle moving away from officers before shots were fired. Protests have spread beyond Minnesota, with many demonstrators and civil rights advocates calling for transparency and accountability. Good's family has also spoken publicly, asking for justice and urging empathy rather than division. And now in sports, Nigeria's star Alex Iwobi has praised head coach Eric Chell for building a strong team spirit that has carried the Super Eagles into the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations just 2 months after their painful exit from the World Cup qualification. The Super Eagles would face tournament host Morocco in Rabat on Wednesday as they look to continue the fine form that has taken them to the last 4. Nigeria reached the final of the previous AFCON 2 years ago in Ivory Coast before losing to the host. Iwobi was also part of the squad that made the semi-finals in 2019. He said the improved atmosphere in the camp, despite reported disagreements with the Nigeria Football Federation over bonuses, has helped bring out the best in him and his teammates. Nigeria struggled during the World Cup qualifiers and saw their hopes end in a penalty shootout defeat to the Democratic Republic of Congo in Rabat in November, even though their form improved after Chell was appointed 12 months ago. Chell admitted that having 2 recent African Player of the Year's winners, Victor Osimhen and Ademola Lookman, has made his job easier. And that's a wrap on news update. Do not forget to follow us across all social media platforms for more programs, news, and documentaries. I am Dorcas Yakubuzala. Thank you for watching.